Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we getting on? Welcome back to the Slog once again. So for today, we're going to work on this area out front here and start turning it into a kind of commercial area, sort of public front for the rest of the settlement. Whereas obviously the area behind the fence around the pool is going to be the more private food producing areas for the actual residents. So we're going to start off with a public bar type of thing, and we're going to build a hotel as well shortly afterwards. So a bit of a two-part build. So this shack is the Diamond City Shack, called, added by USO. It's been floating around for ages, and I've never actually made any use of it. Sort of stumbled across it and thought, yeah, why not? So here we go. So it's going to be the bar. I've moved that into the place using the pillar glitch, or just group select, which is getting slightly harder than it was now that I'm filling up the space. Which is going to make life interesting when I come to move over the other side, because I'm going to have a hard time finding anywhere to do anything with it. But there we go, we'll manage. So, I want a little decking area out to the side here, try and expand on it, because the shack is actually quite small. If you're curious, I think it's the doctors from Diamond City, to be exact. So I had thought to use just shack foundations initially, but I can't sink them quite low enough to be flush with the floor of the shack that we've got in place already. So we're going to come at it from the other angle and use these pallets. Those fit in quite nicely, they're just about half the size, so use a little bit of group select just to push those together because they're nice and soft, and then we'll move it into place. So I've actually had a bright idea about what else I can do here, because I was thinking of a few shops, that sort of thing, but I don't want to overdo it. Kind of want to account for the fact that Doc Weathers? Yeah, that's his name. Keeps turning up here, so we'll... So I've literally just thought, I think the next one's probably going to be a sort of a farm shop. So that should go quite well, give them somewhere to sell their produce. For now, we'll expand this bit. And there we go. So... clearly we need some way of providing support for this, and as you can see, my initial thought was to use these three-layered, well, they cinder block walls, and just slide those under for support. They're actually much bigger than they need to be. I end up pulling them out, but I've not bothered showing you that, and just using the single pieces. And then, as you can see, it's sort of clipping through the horizontal rail there that the planks on top are attached to, which is fine, but we can do better than that. So the idea is to just use the single ones, slide them underneath, and make it look like rather it's just resting on the top, which is the same principle as you see here, nice and easy. And yeah, you just sort of see there I've changed it already. So I wanted to close this place off a little bit, sort of make it feel like a completed structure a bit more. I thought we'd do something a little different and use the picket fences for this. Actually, not the best way of approaching it, this. I might have been better off just putting the thing together and then group selecting it in again. Although it might have been a slight issue with getting close enough, because if you can just about see there, there's kind of lip. So I'm waving my hand around like that's going to actually help you. Yeah, there's a kind of lip just on the front of it that leans outwards, sort of towards us, so all the way around it, which makes positioning it a little awkward and getting the pillar close enough awkward as well. But there we go, what can we do? This works in the end anyway. Again, you can see that it's all at funny heights and isn't properly lined up. So we'll just pull out the extraneous posts and just snap it straight in, and the whole thing looks a darn sight better for it. There we go. Eventually, sort of, maybe. There we go. Actually, as it turns out, it's more or less a perfect fit as well. Where did that go? There it is. So I wanted to partially close this end off, which I had a few thoughts on how to do that. I've tried junk fences and various bits and pieces like that, but if it goes too far over, certainly towards this front edge, you have a hard time getting out. So that half wall goes in quite nicely at the side and still leave you with enough headroom to get through the gap. We'll stick some furniture down so you get a general idea of where we're going with the inside of this, because certainly using a semi-finished structure, I should say, to form the basis of it makes life a lot easier. And this is a handy little trick. If you're looking to place a bench like this that you can't tell which side is the front or the back, just move along the same menu to another one that does have a back, like that garden bench we used. Line that up so it's facing the right way, and then move back, and the subsequent bench, the one you're actually looking for, will be facing the right way. So we now know that both of these are in the right way around. Something I have actually tested in the sense that as this is going to be a bar, the settlers naturally congregate there in the early evening, and it works very well for that. A few steps in to give them access. Fairly standard bit of group selecting. Use the same old procedure here, same thing we did last time. Drop a few down, snap them to a floor, and then take the floor away and group select the whole lot in. Which works fine on one piece, but on the second one it's not so convenient. Because the way it sits against the building and stuff, it just won't quite clip in as close as I'd like. So I end up doing them one at a time, which actually kind of works. It's not quite as snug a fit as I'd like. There you go, you can sort of see here it's not going to work. But yeah, as I say, it's not quite as snug as I like, the solution I come up with, but it does work, and the whole thing's fairly scrappy anyway, so it doesn't really matter if it's not perfect. Plenty of gaps in that decking after all. But for this part, you see the steps are actually a little wider than the pallet is. Yeah, they've got a bit of an overlap with the concrete at the edge there, but it works. So, one by one, problem solved. Okay, you just about see the gap's a bit bigger than I'd like, but yeah, it's okay. And a little bit of advertisement on the front of it. And onto the hotel. Just sort of a hotel-motel sort of deal. Again, I wanted to mix and match and use things I don't use too often. So I've got one of the retextured boxcars here. This one with the legs doesn't actually work, so I'll swap it out for this one. And I've sunk it into the ground a little bit, and repeated that over the other side. There's the idea being to make it look a little bit more rough and ready. In hindsight, I could have done this the other way around. I actually had the open end against the bus. That might have been a good idea. Hindsight's 20/20. Oh well, it works. But I'll come inside the bus here because I actually sort of see along the line of it a little better and get it sitting as close as possible there. Strangely enough, that's actually easier. There we go. One advantage to this being sunk into the ground is that closing the end off using junk fences is a lot easier. A tiny little bit of concealment, I think, from simple green there, because the grass is hiding the fact I think it's actually floating slightly. These standard height junk walls are actually tall enough to do the job, rather, with it being sunk into the ground a bit. And it works quite well with a rough and ready look at the place. So it's kind of basic, but when you're living a life on the road, it's probably about as much shelter as you can really hope for, I imagine. So I don't imagine the caravanners will be particularly bothered. We can adjust that ever slightly. Just thought, I'm not sure I ever got around to putting in an actual caravan mat or marker for the corner that I did last time. Might have to think about that. Maybe get some more traders turning up other than just Doc Weathers. So the idea here is to use this prefab as the basis for what was going to become a kind of roof terrace, which would have looked rather cool, but actually in its execution was somewhat lacking, unfortunately. So I wound up pulling it back out in a minute. However, it did help very much when I came to line up this one, which is a capsule. It's in the modular section of USO, and it makes life a bit more interesting, something a bit more dynamic that I don't use very often. Again, it's there's modular versions of it, so you can just group select them together any which way you like and make it much more complicated, but I wanted to mix and match more with this, so I'm just using the one completed piece here. And I'm just going to use the top of this roof piece that I've actually snapped a floor piece on there with. It's just a case of using a shack upper floor, snapping it to the edge, and then snapping the ordinary floor to the top of it to put a floor on that particular prefab. There we go. You can see it lines up quite neatly there. Because if you try and do it from ground level, it's quite a pain. But the one problem we do have there is it's a little too low, the grass clipping through, so I actually went and did it again and just did it a little bit higher up. So we'll get a roof on the front there. And that clearly needs some support in a minute. So this was my initial thought for putting stairs up to build this roof terrace idea I had, but as I say, I ended up scrapping it for the reason you can see just about now. because as I say, it just looks ratty and awful, and yeah, I wasn't very happy with it at all. As you can see, that's the other issue I had with it. The staircase there is floating far too much, so I could probably have worked around it using warehouse pieces and stuff, but again, with the hindsight thing, and yeah, I'm still not convinced it would look particularly good, so out with the prefab and in with another roof, and we'll just snap a floor back in there to finish off the inside. Oh, you can see the grass growing rather through the wooden panels, so it just makes it look like it'd been there for a while, in my opinion. And it's, yeah, it works. As I say, I wanted it to look kind of improvised and built out up of what they had available. So it's CVA wire fence posts here, double height ones again. And an old standby of mine rather. And we're going to put a door on here, which in hindsight could probably have been done using a shack door, just snapped straight onto the floor. They should be about the right height, the roofs and the floors and stuff. So it really should have gone in just fine, but yeah, hindsight strikes for a third time. But still, we'll close off this little gap. I actually ended up group selecting in a wooden half wall as well, just to make that look a little bit more solid, sort of sinking it in. But that is basically our two structures. So let's have a look around the decorated final product, shall we? So, into the hotels, it's closest to the entrance. Bit of fairly basic decoration. Somewhere to hang out in the lobby here. So this is the office and sort of bedroom for the person who runs this place, which I've not yet assigned anybody to, but I'll have to come up with a way of doing that at some point. Actually might be kind of awkward, but we'll think of something. Got a snub nose there, just in case anybody decides they don't want to pay their bill. And we'll open up our first little dormitory, I suppose. It's kind of that kind of style, I think. I've used the small beds in there just because the space in there and in this bus, of course, as well, is very limited. Everything here is pretty much rug glitched in because it just doesn't like to sit too close to the overhanging walls there. Got a few pillows back in the office there that I guess could be hired for slightly more than the basic cost. And there we have it. A very simple, cobbled together sort of hotel. The little sign on the top's just two ordinary shack railings just placed very, very close to each other and then group selected into place. I did try half walls and stuff and it just didn't look all that good, so stuck with an oldie but a goodie. So a little bit more decoration. This shop counter is one of Aslam's workshop decoration pack items, as are the shelves actually. And there's a few different styles available. They use the same basic model but they're decorated differently, which is quite cool. That one works quite well. You still have to use a vendor mat for them. They're the right height if you do, so if you've got them close enough and they lean forward, their hands should rest nicely on the top of the counter. Well, that is our two little builds for this week. So I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, as always, I'm sure you know what to do by now. Social media links down in the description, and I'll be speaking to you all very, very soon. Thank you very much.